This presentation on how to grow your green office. So to start off this morning, I should, introduce myself. My name is Emily Batasny. I'm the Sustainability Engagement Manager with the Office of Sustainability. And so to kind of just get started and make sure we're all on the same page, it's helpful to start with a definition of what sustainability is for us here at Pitt, how we define it. And we define sustainability as balancing equity, environment, and economics so that current and future generations can thrive. So we try and get this definition in front of folks as often as possible so that we make it really clear that, we are focused on all three pillars of sustainability in our sustainability planning, in the goals and priorities that we set for sustainability at the university, because each of these needs to be addressed in order for any of that programming to be truly sustainable, to help carry us into the future and help those future generations move forward as well. So a little bit more on Pitt's history of sustainability. It's a relatively long path for an educational institution. It all started in the 1990s with the Taylor's Declaration. I'm never sure if I'm pronouncing that correctly. So we were one of 22 universities around the world that committed to sustainability back in 1990. Then a couple of other highlights here. In 2008, we conducted our first greenhouse gas inventory.
Yeah, I forgot to. I'm in though.
Oh, hello. Thanks for joining.
Sorry.
So we conducted our first ever greenhouse gas inventory in 2008. And we've done one of those every 3 years for a while. And now we're on an annual basis with our greenhouse gas inventories. And then in 2018, we launched our first sustainability plan and found our first sustainability director, Dr. Aurora Sherrard. So I'm going to talk about the sustainability plan a little bit more here. So that was written by a committee of faculty, students, and staff. And that group has now become the Chancellor's Advisory Council on Sustainability. The plan encompasses three key themes: stewardship, exploration, and community and culture. So addressing, the fact that we are an educational institution, so incorporating sustainability into our academics and research is really important, hence the exploration portion of that. Stewardship is where, the rubber meets the road in terms of our operational sustainability and making sure that we are working on our impact as operationally as a university. And then community and culture gets into the engagement, how we are working as a global citizen, a citizen of the city of Pittsburgh, regionally, and then within the campus as well. And within all of those themes, they each have 5 impact areas, and there are 68 distinct goals within the bulk of all of these impact areas put together. And if you are interested in getting to know any of that more, you can certainly read the sustainability plan. It is a great read if you are interested in kind of diving into the priorities that were set back in 2018. And if you're interested in finding out more about where we are, how we are doing on those 68 different goals, we just released our first ever sustainability plan progress report. So it's a 2018 to 2022 update on how we're doing on those 68 different goals. It's available on our website. It's about 108 pages, I believe. So it's a bit of a bulky read, but it's definitely an interesting one to dive into. If there's particular topics that you're most interested in on our website, you can drop down specifically to those individual goals and topics. So yeah, if it's something you're interested in, especially after this presentation, I encourage you to go check it out. So when we launched the sustainability plan, like I mentioned, that was kind of in conjunction with creating the Office of Sustainability, which I am a part of, along with Dr. Sherrard or Aurora and Sam Chan is up there. But there are lots of sustainability staff all around the university, including Nick. So folks are embedded, who are working on sustainability are embedded in different departments throughout the university, working on sustainability in those capacities, whether it's operationally in academics, dining, transportation. We've got the Center for Sustainable Business as well, and of course in business and auxiliaries too. So these are the folks currently. I think I'm missing the photo for Jose, who just joined for Pitt East for sustainability. But yeah, there's lots of us who are focusing on sustainability throughout the university, not to mention, of course, all the folks who help us get all of the sustainability initiatives and goals worked on. So all these folks are just kind of the hubs, but everybody's working on sustainability at the university. If you do want to reach out to folks and don't know where to begin, don't know like who specifically to reach out to with a question, a great email to start with is that one right down here, sustainability@pitt.edu, and ask whatever questions you need. And we'll be able to point you in the right direction for whomever might be the subject matter expert or working on the initiative that you're interested in. So, like I mentioned, there are lots of different goals in the sustainability plan. Community and culture and engagement and awareness are specifically a big part of that. So core to that sustainability plan and its success really is engagement and awareness. So how we weave the culture of sustainability into the everyday fabric of our campus and community. And that's what we're talking about today. So there are lots of sustainability initiatives in place on campus and lots of ways that people at Pitt are already participating in sustainability. We're going to review some of these initiatives and ways you can get involved on campus. But this graph here comes from our last sustainability culture and literacy survey. We just conducted a new one, but we're not releasing that information yet. I think we're still processing it. But in 2020, we asked the campus, both staff, students, and faculty about lots of different questions about what sustainability means to them and what they want to see Pitt prioritize. We did ask this question of which of the following sustainability activities are you involved in at Pitt? So you can see lots of folks are engaging in recycling and composting, how we get to campus in more sustainable ways, using less energy, promoting diversity and inclusion, and purchasing environmentally friendly products are among the most common folks that ways are engaging in sustainability here on campus. We also asked folks, in addition to how they engage already, we asked what's most important to them that Pitt address. And so we've got our responses and the answers from 2017 and 2020. We did ask the questions slightly different ways each of those years, but as you can see, the top three kind of concerns or things that the Pitt community wants to see Pitt address overall have remained similar in that time. So we had waste recycling and composting switched to number 2 after energy use efficiency and conservation in 2020, but reducing energy, reducing fossil fuels, and then our handling of materials as well continue to be the top 3 priorities that the Pitt community wants to see addressed in our sustainability goals and initiatives. So yeah, like I mentioned, we did just complete our most recent survey on this, and we'll be releasing that information once we've got it all worked through. But just really great to see that, folks are kind of the priorities that were set out in that initial 2018 plan continue to be reflective of what the Pitt community also prioritizes. So before we launch into the Green Office program, I want to kind of start by thanking you guys individually for joining today, for taking the time out of your day to be here. And I want to recognize the strengths and knowledge that already exist in this group. Oh, sorry. Oh, okay, sorry. And so that's, personal strengths and your passions, the value of your work and your function in the university, and then your energy and attention too. So none of these initiatives that, I was just talking about on the slide 2 before this, setting the priorities and having goals for the university, none of that is possible without all that you guys already bring to the table to make the university function. So before I move on, I do want to take just a moment to reflect on these 3 questions. You can feel free to write your responses in the chat if you would like, and we can talk about it more at length after the presentation. But questions I want you to think about are, what's the most important part of sustainability to you? How do you practice sustainability in your day-to-day, whether that's at work or at home, and the choices you make between work and home to get here? And then what choices do you make to save resources? So thinking through those things, feel free, as I was saying, to drop stuff in. Um, So all that just to say, I put this on a slide with a bunch of oak leaves. We are in Oakland. Um, and so just as a kind of metaphor, like the ecosystem that it takes to make an oak tree thrive, everyone in the Pitt community is part of the Pitt ecosystem. And in the same way, what we each do each day as individuals affects and interacts and contributes to our progress towards those 68 goals set forth in the Pitt Sustainability Plan. And what you care about, the habits and practices that you already keep, and the knowledge that you have about sustainability are unique strengths that can contribute to those goals. So all just to say, thank you guys for being a part of this. We couldn't do it without you and the care that you already bring. So getting into it, today we're going to talk about the Green Office program and how you can get a green office growing in your unit or department. So the Green Office program is part of a green suite of engagement programming throughout the university. So the Pitt Green Office program was first piloted in 2018 and it became a university-wide offering for as a designation in 2019. So up through today, we have 53 green offices spread out across 4 different levels of designation, from seed, sprout, sapling to sustainable oak. The Pitt Green Office assessment helps offices to evaluate their practices related to energy, food, transportation, printing, purchasing, waste, and culture of sustainability. And the Office of Sustainability provides guidance to help those offices grow to the next level of achievement. We'll be talking through some of those in a moment. So these other programs here are very similar in the way that they kind of recognize the work being done and like your regular daily operations on campus. And so we have a specific program for Green Labs that focuses on some of the unique equipment and materials needs that working in a lab presents. And then, of course, there's also our Green Event program that has been kind of switched over to a green host training that the Student Office of Sustainability created last year, and then you can host green events from there. And then, of course, on the student side of things, we have the Green Resident and Green Floor programs for students to be able to recognize their own sustainable choices they make and how they live and study on campus. And the Green Floor program recognizes where basically a group of students who are committed green residents have gotten all together. And then we have our green student organizations as well through the Student Office of Sustainability. So getting into the Green Office program specifically. So the work of the Green Office really is just in organizing your team and keeping these daily sustainable habits and practices. So we wanted to make gaining designation as simple a process as possible. To join or to resubmit, it only takes these 3 steps. First, getting your team of coworkers together. So when you're defining your Green Office, the only requirements that we have are that your team includes at least 3 people, and that you share some kind of resource, whether it's the space that you occupy, being part of the same team, maybe you have a shared administrator or something like that. That can be how you define it. And we do encourage folks to, if you're part of like a very large team, consider how you might break down your overall department into a small enough unit that you can get your team together on like a semi-regular basis, maybe monthly or bi-monthly, to talk through these practices that you want to keep, which is sometimes a little hard to do if you've got like a very, very large, like, 50+ person department. So getting that team of coworkers together and agreeing that this is something that you want to try and do together is the first step. Then the next step is reviewing our Grow Your Green Office planning tool and the Pitt Employee Green Guide, which I'm going to introduce you to in a moment. So that's where the bulk of the work of reviewing your practices and learning about new initiatives that you might want to start or practices that you might want to begin really is. And so we'll talk about that. And then after you've gone through and read through those resources, then you submit your self-assessment, which is just an online Baldrige survey. So that looks like this. It's available on the sustainability website. You can go to that link for the Qualtrics survey, and it should take less than 10 minutes to complete, since you've already done the work of looking through the planning tool and the resource guide. This is just kind of the formal submission. So after you submit that survey, after a few weeks, you'll be notified of your ranking, of your designation level. So the rankings are modeled after the stages of an oak tree, to symbolize our ability to grow and nurture sustainability in our daily lives. Also, we did this because one of the oldest trees on campus is 100-foot tall, 210-year-old northern red oak near Heinz Chapel. And acorns, which are the seed of the oaks, feed more than 100 species, making them a valuable food source for wildlife in the area. So oak trees are a great part of the ecosystem here, and we wanted to mirror that in this program as well. So these are the different designation levels, and we do have plenty of offices and labs that have achieved sustainable oak level and folks that have moved from seed up to that. As you can resubmit whenever you would like to see if you have in fact grown your office to a new level of designation. So what are the benefits of becoming a green office? The main thing is that you'll become part of a community of like-minded professionals that can help you develop best practices. A new thing that we'll be starting out this year, after having our first celebration of green offices and labs coming up on June 29th this year, is we'll begin a workshop series where on a quarterly basis, we'll bring green offices and labs together to workshop on a specific part of sustainability, a specific goal, whether it be resource management, materials, energy use, printing and paper. So we can kind of double down and share our best practices that we're learning about in our offices, as well as new things, new initiatives that we're going to be trying out on campus to be more efficient with our resource use and more sustainable overall. So engaging in those kinds of conversations and questions also opens up a dialogue between your team and the Office of Sustainability, so that we can help you guys level up and figure out what new initiatives we need to be working on as a university, to help you be able to operate as sustainably as you want to. There's also a lot of points available for promoting a culture of sustainability within your office. And we're going to talk about that in a moment too. And then in terms of the literal benefits of what you get an ecal that goes on your on the front of your door or your window. And then after that, you will get an award that looks like this. So we worked with a local artist using reclaimed wood to create these awards. And as you can see, the award itself, you just get the one. So you gotta choose a name that is going to stick and be good in the long term. But then the actual designation level is a changeable slide that we can switch out whenever you resubmit your survey to see if you've grown to a new level of designation. So we do have a requirement that every 2 years you resubmit your survey. And that's for a couple of different reasons. So first is that you've probably in 2 years, especially the last 2 years or 3 years in particular, have had a lot of changes in your office, whether that's the staff that are in your office, maybe you've switched to a flexible or entirely remote work schedule. And so that every 2-year renewal is really intended to help you make sure that the practices you submitted 2 years ago are still applicable to your office. They're still something you're able to practice. And then also to bring in all of the new folks that might have joined your team and check in and make sure that everybody is familiar with the practices that you want to keep. So yeah, every 2 years we ask that folks resubmit. You are free to resubmit anytime between the first submission and that 2-year renewal requirement. But that's the minimum that we request. And we will be establishing a every 6 months sort of schedule. So we are going to begin to ask folks to submit their surveys before the end of May each year and the end of November, so that we can make these awards in regular batches to hand out in June and December each year. So you can submit anytime, but to make sure you get your award on a time frame that's just more beneficial. We are establishing May and November as the dates to try and get your surveys in play. So now I'm going to review some best practices based on action items in the Green Office program. So these are actions that are not only highly impactful, but they're going to lay the groundwork for the future success of your Green Office team as you choose to take on additional actions or tackle any hurdles or barriers that you encounter. So as I go through these next slides, feel free to make a mental note or a real note of things that sound interesting or challenging to you. But the best place to begin, I've found, always is with identifying and engaging your team. And we have adjusted the program to recognize the value of this engagement and coordination with a lot of new points that are available to you for these exact actions listed on the screen here and a whole lot more. So getting an absolute best practice, like I mentioned first, get that team together and understand your needs, interests, the strengths that are on your team. You might have a sustainability expert in your office that just because you haven't, talked about it together before, you might not know that they're, excellent home composter, or they've got, new ideas for how to save energy or save paper in your office. So just starting with getting that team together and talking about the fact that you want to operate more sustainably is a great place to begin. The next thing that I encourage folks to do is review the Employee Green Guide, which is available on the sustainability website. It's over in the resources tab. You can also familiarize yourself with sustainability initiatives on campus and be kept up to date by signing up for the sustainability newsletter on our website. And then reviewing the Grow Your Green Office planning tool together. And I'm going to show you guys those on the next 2 slides. And deciding on your green team's vision and communication plan. So how you're going to stay up to date with each other on the practices that you want to keep and how you're going to check in on that. I generally recommend to folks just set up an agenda item in your regular all staff meetings, whether that's, monthly, bi-monthly, whatever works for you, to just talk through the practices that you're trying to begin and see what folks have, any challenges folks have run into or things you want to troubleshoot. And again, all of these are things that you can earn points for in the Green Office survey. So by doing these first, you'll be setting yourself up for success, but then also getting yourself some kind of low-hanging fruit points, even though I think this is honestly the most challenging part of establishing your Green Office, is just getting the team together, deciding to begin. So that Employee Green Guide, like I mentioned, this is what it looks like. It's on our sustainability website. It's separated out into lots of different sustainability topics. So if there's a specific area that you're interested in finding out more about, finding out what the initiatives and resources available to you as Pitt employees, and just the initiatives that we have on campus, that's all available here in the Green Guide. So this is a great place to start. Just read through a topic that maybe you have questions about or you're not as familiar with. And I would encourage your whole team to do so as well. So the Grow Your Green Office planning tool is also on the Green Office page of our website. And I am going to actually drop that in the chat for you guys. Find it. So this planning tool is one that I just built a little earlier this year. And the way that this functions is it's got a tab in it's got a bunch of different sheets. Each of these tabs relate to one page of questions in the survey for the Green Office program. So this tool, basically you select whether this action is something that you have completed, maybe something that a couple of the folks on your team already do, but you want to establish it as more of a common practice. So that would be choosing in process, or maybe it's something that you read through and you don't do it yet, but it's something you'd like to do in the future. So you can select planned for that as well. As you go through these different tabs and select one of those options, we have a progress dashboard, which will track the percentage that you've achieved and estimate your designation level essentially for when you submit your survey. So these are the exact actions that you'll find in that survey, just in a different format, that also can directly link you to some of the resources that are in that employee green guide that I showed you a moment ago. So what I recommend for folks to do is to maybe set a meeting time with the folks on your green office team to just sit down for an hour and talk through each of these sheets, talk through each of these actions, and see if it's something that you can do, you're already doing, or that you'd like to do in your office. And from there, once you've completed this here, you'll have a sense of what your designation level will be, but you do need to go ahead back to that survey. So this survey here, the Qualtrics survey, and submit your survey responses based only on the actions that you've marked as complete in the Growing Your Green Office Planning tool. So this is really just an internal tool for your own planning and just understanding of how the program works and the resources available for these actions. But yeah, those completed options here are the only ones that you should check off in the actual survey. So getting back into some of those best practices. So in each of these tabs, you're going to see all these different actions. And these are just a couple of places that I recommend for folks to begin when they're starting out with their green office. So again, just make maybe a mental note or write down an actual note of something that might apply to your office as a good place to start. So I'm going to start off with talking about energy savings because purchased electricity or electricity from the grid that powers our buildings accounts for the most of our scope 2 emissions, our indirect emissions. And so they make up a large portion of our greenhouse gas inventory. So how do we reduce the amount of emissions our electricity usage creates? Most of those reductions are going to come from investing in energy efficiency in our new and renovated buildings, and also choosing renewable energy and switching from grid power to renewables as much as possible. But once we've changed our energy sources and have the most energy efficient systems possible in our buildings, reducing the energy that we demand through our daily use, so it's everything we plug in and turn on, that's going to be critical to getting to carbon neutrality. And the university does have a goal to be carbon neutral by 2037. So what are some energy saving behaviors that you can practice in your office? So reducing plug loads or energy vampires by making sure that all your monitors, printers, etc., are set to hibernate after a certain period without use, and unplugging these devices or setting them on a power strip to shut off at the end of the day and during school breaks. Those are things that can significantly reduce your energy use here on campus in your office. So consolidating devices, whether they be printers, fans, heaters, or other appliances, can also result in big energy savings, especially when you apply them to a power strip or an advanced power strip even. So that can automate some of the turn off and hibernate modes that I was mentioning before. And then finally, lighting accounts for actually most of the electricity use in our standard office spaces on campus, so our standard office buildings, not our labs. So maximizing your use of daylight instead of overhead lights, is tough on a daylight today, and creating protocols to shut off lights in unoccupied rooms, as well as trading out bulbs for energy efficient LEDs. You can do that through a facilities management request, and any task lighting can also reduce energy use in your office space. All right, and so just a couple of other notes on reducing plug loads in your office. I do recommend, if you've never done an inventory of the devices in your space, there's a great tool available through the National Renewable Energy Lab that can help you kind of inventory and assess the devices that you use on a regular basis and consider, is this something that we really need? And so then taking the next step, you would consolidate those devices, donate anything that you don't need. And you have a couple options for that. Of course, there's Pitt surplus that you can work with for a pickup of any unneeded devices. And then annually, we do have our clean and swap event that just happened this past May 17th and 18th. if you want to donate your unneeded devices just once a year, kind of hold on to them for a while and see if anybody else needs them in their office. That's the idea behind Click and Swap. And then moving devices to shared spaces, so out of individual office spaces and into like if you have a shared copy room or like a space in your hall where everyone can access the devices rather than having individual ones at your desk or in your separate office space can be really helpful as well for reducing energy use. All right, so moving on to transportation and commuting, which is another big part of our emissions as a university. So for green office transportation actions, I'd recommend that all staff get together and review their sustainable commuting options on the PTS website, pts.pitt.edu/mobility. That is an action that you can get points for, just sitting down and actually reviewing these options and making sure that everybody is familiar with all the options that are available to them. I'd say that pretty much everybody knows that, you know, we've got our awesome free use of the bus system in Pittsburgh through your Pitt Employee Pass. We also have great benefits through the POGO bike system where you can rent out a bike for 30 minutes for free, including the new e-bikes that they have. There's no $1 unlocking fee like there used to be. So I think most folks are pretty familiar with those, but a lot of folks I found aren't as familiar with our van pooling and carpooling options, which can be kind of a game changer, especially for those employees that might live outside of the well-serviced areas by the bus system. So for folks that live further out of town, which is a not insignificant portion of Pitt's employees, our van pool and carpool systems can be helpful for trying to match up with folks who are commuting from similar areas or with the van pools that we have available as well. We do also have actions in the Green Office program for supporting your fellow employees who or your colleagues who want to bike into the office. So we're asking folks to make sure that they've got storage access to keep all of your extra biking materials. I know as a bike commuter myself, I definitely need access to a little bit more space to put like my bike clothes versus my work clothes and that kind of thing. And also if you have like nearby showers, it's helpful to show folks where those are. So commuting in the summer is an option. And then we also have lots of new actions in the commuting section that are focused on the fact that we do a lot of flex and remote work these days. So prioritizing virtual meetings when possible and working remotely when possible are additional actions in this section. We do have lots of actions related to work travel as well. So if you travel for conferences or presentations or anything like that, we have actions related to choosing sustainable and less carbon intensive options there too. But where I'd recommend folks start is really just with reviewing those commuting options and making sure that everyone is aware of the resources and the options that are available to you to get here to campus. All right, moving on to reducing printing. This is a great way to meet sustainability goals, but also to save money and resources and oftentimes gain efficiency in your operation too. So the university has seen a drastic reduction in paper use over the course of the pandemic. Paper use is actually down 70% in 2021 from fiscal year 19, largely due to virtual work and study and that increase of our adoption of digital tools. I will say we are back up to, we're still seeing reduction overall, but we are back up significantly from that 70%. So trying to kind of harden those digital adoption is going to be really important to reducing university paper use. Pitt IT does have lots of resources and software to replace paper systems, from forms for signature like DocuSign to lab notes in lab archives to sharing documents through SharePoint or OneDrive. So I'd encourage you to think through the paper processes that you might still have in your regular office operations and look into IT's resources for what digital options or software might be available to switch that out. And we're actually in the midst of working with IT to develop a guidance to help connect those hard copy processes to a software or online alternative that Pitt already owns or has a contract for. So in addition to going digital wherever possible, we're asking that folks consolidate printers and you can track your paper use. We're actually in the midst of also changing our managed print vendor. And in that transition, we are having a system similar to how students track paper use through Pharos, where folks will be able to actually see their regular paper use as an individual tied to their employee card, or at least that's the goal. Hopefully we can get there. But outside of that, setting all your printers to duplex, so two-sided printing and black and white, reduces the use of that ink and toner, reduces the paper use itself. And we also, if you do have one-sided prints that do on a regular basis, for flyers or anything like that, one thing you can do is collect all of that one-sided paper in a container next to your printer, and have instructions for how to reload for additional one-sided prints using the other side of that paper. I do it here we do a lot of flyers for QR codes in the Office of Sustainability. And so saving those for print on the other side has been a good way for me to reduce paper use, because flyers are pretty much all I print anymore. And then making sure, of course, that any paper that you do use, you have recycling set up nearby, or reusing it for paper, and that's how you in your office. And then finally, opting for Tree Zero or recycled content paper where you can is a great way to reduce the resources and emissions associated with paper use as well. Tree Zero paper has become increasingly hard to find. There's a problem with the supply chain for Tree Zero, which is a fiber-based paper. It doesn't use trees at all. But we do have recycled content paper accessible within the super system again. And as we had issues with that stock as well for some time, but I hear that we're back to having that accessible through regular office ordering. All right, just a couple more best practices here. So when you need to get rid of furniture or equipment, you can do so sustainably through surplus property. So surplus takes old electronics to recycle and will sell any unwanted supplies that still have value as well, including electronics. So you can get your items picked up in a bundle for $40, and it can be furniture, electronics, anything like that. As I mentioned before, if you don't want to do that, you can always donate items to campus events like Clean and Swap if you want to hold on to them until the next time that we have that next year. So a couple more things here. Sustainable purchasing is another big way that you can affect the emissions associated with our operation here on campus. So the most important thing to keep in mind with sustainable purchasing and the way that we've structured the points within the Green Office program as well are focused around this hierarchy of waste that you see here on the right. So that indicates that the most sustainable product really is the one that you don't have to buy. So source reduction, reuse, and repair should always be something that you consider first before buying anything at all. So ways that you can encourage that in your office is keeping an area for extra supplies to reuse that everyone knows is our extra office supply area to go and check first before you order anything new. Decluttering and reducing waste at an event like Clean and Swap, sorry for mentioning that so many times, is another good thing to do. And then also keeping an inventory that's not listed on this page here, but just keeping a regular inventory is the first step to making sure that you don't over order or just keeping track of the supplies that you do have in stock. Then a couple of other quick tips, especially if you order materials for an annual program or an event or as a gift. So avoid printing dates or times on any merchandise or swag. Also avoiding printing any very specific kind of title, trying to, especially if it's an annual event, making sure that it's something pretty generic that's going to stand the test of time, can help reduce waste associated with events quite a bit. Then purchasing supplies made from recycled content or compostable options are a great way to go. And you have the option through Supra to be able to search specifically for those programs. If you're interested in learning more about that, we do have a tutorial available for that on the Office of Sustainability YouTube page, where we have a sustainable purchasing workshop that we did with Jennifer Barnes over from purchasing, if you're curious more about that. And then finally, not using single-use plastics or styrofoam in your office, also a great place to begin. So as I mentioned before on sustainable purchasing is built into our contracts with the university through the work of folks like Jennifer Barnes. So we do have an action in the Green Office program that's just encouraging, going through Pitt contracted vendors and suppliers who've been vetted for sustainability and for diversity. And, we're working towards our goals related to that. So within those contracts that we do have, there's a variety of sustainability programs that each of those contracts offers. So probably what's most relevant for this group here, for Supra and Office Depot, we have a K-Cup recycling program that they've made available to us through that contract. So if you use a Keurig in your office, you can request that through our Office Depot contacts, and information about that is available on a coffee page. We do have a coffee page on our sustainability website and the Employee Green Guide. That's all available to you there. They also have their reusable packing totes programs, their green totes program. So if you order from Supra or ODP, these days you'll note that the materials that you get are coming in paper bags rather than in boxes. And that's due to this green tote program where they're trying to minimize the use of old corrugated cardboard, OCC, by switching to these green plastic totes and just packaging things in paper bags instead. So again, if you're interested in more about this, I'd encourage you to check out that sustainable purchasing workshop on our YouTube page. So finally, for food, if you order in, so all the food practices that are listed out in the Green Office program are now associated with just regular office food. So your lunches or anything that you order in, not for events. We used to have a split out for whether your office regularly hosted events or not. So this is all just focused on what you eat regularly, like for lunch in your office. So if you do order in any catering or shared lunches, choosing to order family style and right sizing your meals according to your leftovers is going to help to reduce waste and reduce packaging as well. Similarly, choosing plant forward and vegetarian menu options as often as possible will really cut down on the emissions associated with the food that you eat. There's a lot more resources that go into raising meats, and specifically beef and lamb, as opposed to plant-based options. Packing your lunches in reusable containers whenever possible, as opposed to using in single-use items. It's an action that you can check off. And as I mentioned before, we do have a number of options for sustainable coffee in your office, whether that's the recycling your K-Cup program with Keurigs. And we also have a discount with a compostable coffee pod option called Taste, if you do have compost available in your office space, which again, is not in every building on campus, but if it's something you want to try out and carry over your compostables to one of the locations on campus where we do have composting, that's an option for you as well. Also on the coffee portion of the sustainability website. All right. So that was a lot of different sustainable actions and best practices that we just reviewed. And of course, there are a lot more in the Grow Your Green Office Guide and a lot more actions that you can check off in the survey. But that was really just to give you a sense of where you can begin. And now I just want to take a moment to kind of digest and consider what it would be like to apply those practices. So take a moment and just think through these questions here. Maybe drop a note in the chat just about what best practices you could see implementing in your office, what practices we talked through that you already keep, and what challenges do you think you might encounter, and what support you could call upon to help. Yeah, since this is just for recording, I'm going to kind of go through that and we can talk about this afterwards. But if anybody does have any questions or wants to follow up with me, you can reach me at this email here, emily.krasny@pitt.edu. And yeah, thank you so much for taking the time to learn more about the Green Office program and how you can begin to grow one in your office. Stop recording.